Welcome to another week of Future of Money. I am here with the amazing Bob Derber, one of the most respected professionals in the Bitcoin and digital currency space.
For those who don't know, I am. It's time for me to blow my horn.
Yay, do
That's right.
it!
I'm an attorney and CPA. I am California and Utah because of the Park City. I live up in Park City. That's where my family and my home are. But I have a practice that takes me to St. Louis a lot and to San Francisco a lot.
Awesome. Yes, let's start. Let's take it a step back and talk a little bit about what is property versus currency, or if you want to take it a step further back, tell us a little bit about Bitcoin and how it relates to the property versus currency discussion that we have.
So, really, the property versus currency is sort of a discussion that we framed quite early in Bitcoin because we wanted to get some guidance on what do we do with Bitcoin and Bitcoin transactions. I don't think a lot of people in the Bitcoin space were specifically thinking of the kinds of things we've already become. I mean, when you look at color coins and the escrow transactions, I think when we were thinking more about this, it really was Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and a trustless system for economic transactions. But like any technology, you have no idea where it's going to go, and in our space, we have some amazing guys and gals who are taking it all over the place. You're going to find, as we talk, you're going to find that that's half of our problem in understanding what this is going to be. So let's go back to the property versus currency. Well, under the tax code, you obviously have cash, US dollars, and property. And when I say property, if you and I exchange, I give you a book in return for your bicycle. We're exchanging property for property.
Mhm.
That is treated as though I had sold the book and given you the cash. You had sold the bike and given me cash back in the way we're looking at it or valuing it for federal tax purposes. That that posed a lot of problems for us in Bitcoin because first, we will certainly know what we originally paid for our Bitcoin. So we know, the US dollar equivalent of what we paid for it. But if you think about it, after that, especially in the early years in the space, if our Bitcoin was held by an exchange, and let's say we moved from Bitcoin to Litecoin, or we were doing something with it where we never really converted back to US dollars, we didn't have a US dollar equivalent for it. And now, as our space is maturing, at least on the pay side, in the pay space, Overstock's a great example. I can trade Bitcoin for a product at Overstock, and it's going to be property for property. I'm going to have to value my Bitcoin at the time that I did my Overstock transaction. Um, we're still wondering if it's truly going to be treated as a barter transaction like the old barter clubs of the 50s. So we were looking to be characterized as a subcategory of property, and our preference, if you will, was going to be currency. So why currency? Um, Property can be a capital asset, can be an ordinary asset, and the distinction doesn't mean a whole lot if you're not a tax professional. It's whether you have capital income or ordinary income on the sale or exchange of it. And a currency is always ordinary income if classified as a currency. But the beauty for us, because again we're thinking about a retail exchange environment, is a provision in the currency rules of the IRS that takes small transactions and excludes the gain or loss from being considered income under the tax code. So, and don't quote me, I think it's $225 or less in those transactions that give that are at that level. There's no tax gain or loss. So if we bought a bike on Overstock we wouldn't worry about what the gain or loss might be on what we made or lost on the Bitcoin. We wouldn't worry about reporting for the transaction that we did with Overstock, because we wouldn't report, if you just buy with a credit card, you don't report that transaction. So that's really the property versus currency argument. Um, and the service came out saying, well, Bitcoin is property, but it's not currency. So that's where we're at. And funny enough, if you read that revenue, that notice, it says currently Bitcoin is property and not currency. So they've left open doors for a number of changes in the way they look at it.
And do you see us eventually migrating to currency? And I want to take it back. We were just talking about email, and before, I guess, the post office was wondering if we should charge to send an email.
This goes back to the early 80s. In the early 80s, I was part of the Software Publishers Association Governmental Affairs Committee. And we had the general counsels of Novell, Microsoft, Bill Newcomb from Microsoft. I think he's now quite a luminary up in your space, with president of one of your professional ball teams. But anyways, so yeah, the service, and for good reason, because we're no better. It has a very difficult time sort of soothsaying where technologies are going to go, and understanding what technologies are. And who thought in say 2010, 2011, in the Bitcoin environment, that we were going to see the kinds of initiatives that are emerging now? The color coin and the master coin and the escrow transactions. Well, same thing with the internet back then. So it's difficult to herd cats. And when the internet was growing and nobody knew where it was going, there was an issue. I remember meeting with Sub Postmaster General, along with us, on how we were going to deal with email. And at that point, it was USPS position that an email was like a letter, and the current first class rate on a letter was 26 cents. So they were trying to figure out how to impose a 26 cents charge on emails, which I thought was really interesting. Think about that today, because if you think about it, Bitcoin is a technology. It is a cryptographically based system that doesn't need to be a currency. It can be a number of different things. Similar to the emergence of the net. Gosh, what is Bitcoin going to be in 5 years? I mean, we only have a few years experience. So, 2009 is the Satoshi white paper, right? Takes a little while for it to pick up. It really gets the view of the space when suddenly the value hits in, I want to say, 2011, 2012. We're watching an emergence of a technology that I think the IRS is just as unable to say where it's going to go. So if they called it a currency, and it really became a medium for transacting business as an escrow, which is that's another initiative that's going on. I don't know. I don't think we're I don't think we're close to having the IRS get a whole lot further in defining what Bitcoin is, because they don't know what it is, and we don't know what it is. Does that make sense?
As much as it can. It's really it's really exciting just to see
it is really
emerges.
exciting. But that's the beauty of the space.
Right.
There are so many people who are brilliant who are saying, "Oh gosh, I could apply this technology in this fashion," and it's like opening up entire new doors. It is. This really exciting for me. I mean, I think half of my attraction to the space is it almost is sort of the days of the internet over again. So I get a chance to watch it from not a participant, but sort of an advisor arena, and I just find that to be fabulous, because the guys who are working this space are brilliant and they're fun.
They are a lot of fun, and really just expanding our minds to what money actually is as a form of exchange, or it's just it's mind blowing, honestly.
Is it not scary when you think about it? When you say expanding our mind on what money is, this is a whole new money.
Yes.
This is a trustless system. This is like, oh my gosh, this isn't money, is it? Who knows really what it is? I, I don't know. This is, it really is. It's great.
It
Let me
really,
go back now to the idea of Bitcoin as property under the Internal Revenue Service. So we're really given a very broad brush on how we're going to apply tax principles. Now, those who are professionals in the arena have a good understanding of the tax principles, and I think can provide um, pretty good guidance to taxpayers on what they should or should not do in various circumstances. For example, how do I value my Bitcoin? Well, I've got a lot of exchanges out there, and we've got exchanges that are coming and going. Gox was sadly one of the majors that disappeared. Well, if I was using, say, the CoinDesk index to value my Bitcoin,
sure.
well, as long as I am using a reputable index and I'm applying that consistently when it either helps me or hurts me, I'm using that same index. So I am applying what is really sort of a principle consistently. I'm not sure we have a lot of reason to fear how this service, the IRS or a revenue agent, is going to look at what we did. That doesn't mean we have the right answers. It doesn't mean we're going to have the right position that we take on, say, a tax return for compliance or other purposes. But it means we tried our best. And if there is an interest or penalty portion for having guessed wrong, I've got a solid foundation to step up and say I think that this has been a reputable taxpayer, and you should treat him as such, and no penalty or interest should be applicable. Does that make sense?
It does. So we use the information that we know to be true at this moment
That's
and
right.
apply our best, I don't even know what the word is, but our best judgment at the time.
That's right.
Or,
We use professional judgment to
okay.
take responsible positions consistently applied.
Consistent, that's probably the key.
For the valuation, for sure. I mean, if I were to use one index one day because I thought that index was going to be better for me, and another index another day because I thought that index was going to be better for me, yeah, there would be significant problems. It would not be a happy day when the revenue agent came. So because this technology is so fresh and new, the service doesn't know what to do with it. We're watching it grow on our end. It's funny because I was talking to the principal author of the revenue notice in the last few days, trying to find out what they were doing. That was issued in I want to say March of 2014. So we've cycled about a year from the notice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any kind of private advice or any tech advice. I've got a list of tax advisors that I run called BCT Tax. And so I floated them to see if anybody had run into it on audit. In any, it doesn't matter to me how, just if they had seen or had it brought up on an audit of one of their clients. Now, given the how recent the technology it is, you probably wouldn't find it. And I don't think the IRS is willing to issue any private authority to taxpayers asking, what do we do with this? But no one's seen it. We're all waiting.
We're all waiting for that first use case in audit.
Let me go to one of the questions the thing you immediately said was 1031. All right.
Yes.
Well, 1031 is kind of interesting, and I think for those of you who don't know, when I exchange property for property, and the property is considered, quote, like kind, I may not have a recognition event for tax purposes. So when I exchange, I can still defer the tax from what I would have paid if I'd sold that asset. So we call that a like-kind exchange. Everybody knows it on the real estate side because that's where it's typically applied. But it does apply to personal property as well. And in fact, it also applies to intangible personal property, right?
Interesting.
Um, Now, query, if I were to exchange Bitcoin for Litecoin or some other alt, um, am I within 1031? Is that considered an exchange of like kind so I don't recognize tax kind of rising from that exchange? I have not been able to give anybody an opinion to date that it still applies because what is like kind is a very technical definition that goes well beyond what is property. So it's property for property, but is it like kind? The kinds of things, say, from Litecoin or any of the alts. I mean, it may be mined differently. It may be an open or closed kind of system. There may, it's the differences. We don't even know what differences will be considered significant to the IRS yet. Those are significant to us. Is there a blockchain? Do they do it in a different method? So I haven't been able with any comfort yet to be able to suggest, oh yes, when you're trading among alts as an investment, I can't sit there and say you won't be recognized on every transaction. So your 1030, this sort of takes, we said property and currency as sort of a subdivision of property, right? Well, I still don't know necessarily what Bitcoin is going to be classified as, and I'm not sure the service knows. Is Bitcoin a debt? Is it a stored value? Is it a contractual right? And I've argued all three in different contexts. But truly, I don't think we know yet. And my guess is that Bitcoin becomes defined by the purpose to which it's being applied, and not as an asset or property in and of itself. So if my Bitcoin represents a share of stock in a company, that Bitcoin is going to be property, but property that is a security that has nothing to do with currency, but is indeed a token for another piece of property. There's some great initiatives out there for Bitcoin as asset managers that are just, it's oh God, the stuff they're doing.
It's amazing. And so what you're saying, though, is the intention behind your use of Bitcoin will determine how it is classified.
That's my best guess now. Yeah, that's my best guess now. If Bitcoin is merely serving as a multi-sig on an escrow transaction, then it really has no particular value at all. I mean, if I have it divided down to this level of Satoshi or below the Satoshi, if we get there with the BIP, if I have it subdivided that deep, now the money side of it, the monetary value of the Bitcoin sort of falls away, and it really is sort of a use that evidences what we're doing. So let me go back and do this share of stock for a moment. Let's have a Bitcoin that's part of the Bitcoin companies where, have you looked at it all where they're using Bitcoin to represent shares of stock in an entity?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so that is one of the uses of Bitcoin that's sort of emerged out there. Despite the difficulties with the other part of Treasury, like SEC, some have subdivided Bitcoin and used the blockchain to evidence ownership in a company. So if I have this address, truly, then I own a share or whatever is parked at that address in this other company.
Sure.
So it's merely a token of ownership of another asset. In this case, a piece of a company. It could be, some I know are using it to tokenize the ownership of artworks. So among several museums,
interesting.
It's really. I found it incredibly interesting, and I actually wanted to get involved in the project because if you hold this address or this Satoshi, then you indeed are the owner of this work of art, and so that way nobody needs to know who indeed is an owner of record. Um, but that, be it as it may, so now I'm using the Bitcoin not as a monetary currency, but really a token of ownership.
Right.
But it's what evidences now the transaction. If I transfer, if in my wallet I have this evidence of stock, and I transfer it to you, so I effectively, go through the regular blockchain transaction and kick that particular address over to you. Really, what we've done is we've just sold a share of stock, and the value of the Bitcoin was entirely irrelevant. Probably wasn't the Bitcoin anyways, because it's $270 now, but a Satoshi or sub Satoshi. Yes, to make a long story long, I think it'll be the use of the asset. Um,
And for right now, as it relates to 1031, you're saying to take a more conservative approach, and it's not
that's what I'm telling
applicable.
my
Like,
clients. I don't think I'm going to sell that box.
okay,
Um, if I get picked up and I've got somebody who's got um, significant tax experience, I don't think I'm going to be able to sell to them that this is going to be a like kind exchange right now among the alt currencies. We may get guidance down the road. I highly doubt it.
hmm,
I don't think the IRS is really. You got to figure the IRS has got its own internal taxpayer advocate saying you need to give taxpayers guidance. It had the General Accountability Office last year step up to the plate and say you need to give taxpayers guidance. So why aren't they doing that? And my take is, and I talk to these guys, my take is we don't want to give the wrong advice. This space is morphing and moving and changing so fast
right,
that we can put our stake in the sand today and be entirely wrong tomorrow.
tomorrow. Exactly, or an hour from now.
Uh huh.
I
So
wanted to, oh, go ahead. I want to
no,
take it to technology, and just how it's morphing and changing. One of the things that interests me and is, I think, fascinating to a lot of people is this idea of tipping versus gifting with a company like Change Tip, where you can, instead of favoriting a tweet, you can send someone a tip.
absolutely.
How is that recognized, or how are tax implications applied to tipping versus gifting, and is there a difference when it comes to Bitcoin?
Well, it really, yes. Is it because it's Bitcoin? No. Is there a difference? If I am out there, let's say, running a blog, and I am effectively paid by people tipping me, whether they use Bitcoin or something else, I'm not sure that's a gift. Okay, and like if you were to say call Connie Galippi over there at BitGive and say, hey Connie, I want to give you 10 bitcoins for Ethiopia because I think that's where she's at right now.
I think it's Kenya, but yes.
Oh, you're right, Kenya. Um,
Yes.
now that's a straight gift. That's a straight up gift. I'm not asking Connie or BitGive to do anything for me. I've not seen something, or they have not attempted to provide me a service or a product, even though it's sort of back ended. That's really the true gift. How the little paywalls are going on. Are they gifts? Will the individual recognize it as income? Is it such a small transaction that we'd all go, I'm not sure I'm going to report anything anywhere on the giving side? Um, I don't know. As a social vehicle, it has the opportunity to be huge because the ability to reward people for doing good work.
Right.
I thought at one point it was where investigative reporting was going to morph to, that the ability to paywall our newspaper space and whatnot with the smaller pieces was an incredibly valuable asset and an incredibly valuable use for Bitcoin. But then suddenly Bitcoin went from being worth cents to being worth dollars, and it sort of lost its ability to be part of that transaction.
Right.
And that's one problem we have with Bitcoin, anyways. It's really an investment for so many people. That the idea of that when 2 weeks ago I could be at 250, and yet a year ago I could be at $800.
Right.
Okay, so you're talking about such a big variance. How do you make something like that work as a currency?
Exactly.
We the tax code has hyperinflation currencies. If you remember, I'm trying to remember, was it Zimbabwe where you had, or the Deutschmark back during the 30s? Oh my
Sure.
gosh!
Right.
Um, Bitcoin as an investment, because it has such fluctuation, really pulls the legs out from it being treated as a transaction, or so a medium for exchange. I think that's where the Ripple guys are trying to find their way into the space, saying we're going to find a medium of exchange that is not so dollar dependent that people are investing in it for fluctuation. Sorry, I'm digressing.
No, you brought up a lot of great points. Stability is something that we're all
If
watching
you,
closely. I love that you mentioned the social good that can come out of being able to tip someone at the end of the blog. There's so many writers that will write something. It's a short, maybe 500, 1,000 word piece that's inspirational and uplifting, and the ability to be able to send $5, $10 quickly. Just imagine what that can do for them and the space.
you think about it, I mean, for me, this is a fundamental reason for being in this space. We can make a difference.
Right.
This technology can make a difference. Um, when it was pennies, when bitcoins were worth 13 cents, I think it was really easy for us to say, we're here for another reason. We're excited about the technology, we're excited about the medium. Only when it changed, and this goes back, I want to say October, November well, even in the summer of 2013, it hit $100. But when it went to $1,000, in October, November, it sort of changes a lot of people who are playing the space now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so when you think about why are we here, there's a lot of different answers now. I think that's a good thing. I think those who are in it for investment purposes, that's a challenge we have. And it's a challenge the technology has. This is interesting. So you're a regulator and you're with the IRS, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking about, how am I going to tax this thing? And it's a cat. You can't herd the cats, right? But you could, I mean, what are you going to do with this animal? If you get out there and regulate it wrong, you're going to impact the technological development.
Right,
And if
exactly.
you regulate it too hard, you're going to push it offshore. I mean, we have jurisdictions out there that would love and are really being very hospitable to Bitcoin. Singapore is saying, come play with us. We have jurisdictions that have been very hostile. So Russia and China have said, go play elsewhere. I think having been through the internet, we realize whatever we do impacts not just a revenue stream to us as a government, that regulators realize that I can screw this technology up really bad if I get it wrong. And we watched this when the other segment of Treasury, FinCEN, was dealing with it as, what is this a transmission of money?
Right.
They don't know what to do. And we can take this stuff offshore tomorrow. So they don't want to do it too hard. What a balance to have to reach, huh?
It's a very delicate balance, and I think that is something that we have to remember when we're complaining, oh, what am I supposed to do? Where's regulation on this? But also remember that it can change the course of action if they do come down pretty hard or harshly on this
Oh,
technology.
absolutely. And before we come down on the regulator, know that the regulator has a huge challenge that, yeah, we want the IRS to give us guidance. Yeah, we want the IRS to give us guidance, but we need to appreciate why they haven't. And sometimes you get what you wish for, and you're sorry you ever wished. So, it's when you talk to these guys, and they're not necessarily hostile to us. There are those who are. Trust me, there are those who are. But typically, they're not necessarily hostile to us, and they are adults in the room.
And they're
And
people, yes.
yes, and they appreciate the excitement of the arena. And for those who have a few gray hairs, they remember the arena and the 26-cent stamp when everybody shook their heads saying, "You're nuts." But they were dead serious.
Very interesting.
Go back, remember the Clipper chip. We were out with the Clipper chip when they wanted to find out who we all were on the net. And so they decided they wanted every hardware manufacturer to incorporate the Clipper chip, Clipper chip, and that was headed up by the NSA advisor Brent Scowcroft, and they were dead serious that they wanted a piece of hardware and any device that was out there hooked to the internet to be able to identify who we were.
Oh, interesting. When
Oh,
was
no. That was, oh God, when
this?
was that? It was, I want to go back to late 80s would be my guess. Probably 88, 89,
Not
because that's
that
when,
long ago.
yeah, I know. Well, you say that long ago, and I sit there and think, oh, that was only yesterday.
Oh,
Uh,
not, I said not that long ago.
oh,
Not
okay.
that long ago.
No, no, it wasn't. Well, come on. We didn't have cell phones 10 years ago. Remember when they were like massive things? God, think about how quick this is rolling.
It's amazingly quick.
No space 10 years ago.
So crazy. And you brought up donations, BitGive
Yes.
Foundation, which
Yes.
is absolutely beautiful what Connie's doing with her company. Can we talk a little bit about donations and
Sure.
as someone that's donating money, what forms, if any, do I need?
Just let's talk BitGive for a minute because
Sure.
if we're talking about donating, and we're talking about donating in a collective sense as Bitcoiners, and we happen to have our weapon of choice with BitGive. So the beauty of BitGive and the executive director is Connie Galippi. That's Tony Galippi's sister, I suspect you know. So Tony over at BitPay, and he's been a great supporter.
Now it all
But
makes sense.
yes, so Connie was Connie comes out of the .org space for a long, long, long time. She was with urban forests for a number of years, so greening our urban environment, if you will. She has put together this vehicle and become terribly Bitcoin friendly. And so when we want to make a collective difference, we have our vehicle that we don't have to convert to USD to be able to make a gift to achieve that particular result. So we can knock a BTC or two over to our friend Miss Galippi right on the blockchain. And yes, I'm very pleased with the selection of efforts she's taken and running. You got to think, Bitcoin as is, there are no borders to Bitcoin. And
Exactly.
so the idea that she may be doing something anywhere else, I really don't care where it is terribly irrelevant to me for one, and for two, it's really germane to what we were and what we are as a space that really sort of avoids the kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but it really is a little shameful in what it costs to get transfer payments to other jurisdictions. And I think in terms of friends of mine who are here and working here and sending money home to their families, including their children, and watching 10% of that money go somewhere else
Right.
before they get there. For me, that's shameful.
And just
And
the time it takes as well to
yo, it's
transfer
it's
money.
painful. It's painful.
Right.
And you get knocked along the way for 2 and 3 points for everyone you touch. It's anyways. I mean, one of the things that there's a number of Bitcoin players, Bitcoin companies that are out there solving this problem. It's going to take them time, but doggone it. So back to Connie and what she's doing over there at BitGive. What a great thing. What a great thing for us to be a part of. And what we've learned, and again, this probably shows a lot of my bents. We've learned that the best price is no longer the right thing. We've learned through fair trade. We've learned through green. Um, it, it isn't all about money. It's about achievement and purpose and doing the right thing. She's out there doing it. We can't be out there with her, but BTC or two headed over to BitGive does exactly what we want to do and makes us the people we are.
Exactly, exactly. And as it stands now, is there anything I should know when I do donate to BitGive from a tax? implications.
Yes, you should know that you want to value the Bitcoin on the date that you made the gift. So remember, we said you need to get out there and get a reputable exchange consistently applied.
Yes.
So make sure you have that information. If the gift is large enough, you may need a receipt or some evidence of your gift. Connie can set you up with that in a heartbeat. So, depending upon the size, you may have additional requirements. I would put it on BitGive to assist you in that regard because they are enabled for that, and I think they're also Libra friendly. I think BitGive is working with Libra Tax. It's nice. It's nice to be. It's nice to work with your friends. It's nice to work with adults.
It is, with
Yeah.
all the same mission to help each
Yes.
other. Yes, and I think we covered. I'm just looking through my notes right now. I think we covered all the specific topics that I
The
wanted to.
scary thing though is even with covering the specific topics, all we can really say is we don't know. That's sad.
It's sad, but it's fun too. This
You know
is
what? I'll tell you what. We don't know is the right answer, and
yes,
and we're comfortable with not knowing where Bitcoin is going because it's pretty exciting as we see it go, and we know that things will develop as we go along, and we know the regulators so far have stayed back, um, and if we better understand why they've taken a bit of a hands-off approach, we should be a little more comfortable in how we deal with it. Because if we make responsible decisions with those who are already in the tax space and kind of understand those, we can sleep at night, which is really what we want, right?
that is all what that's what everyone wants. Absolutely.
In big transactions, you still want to get a hold of somebody who's going to sit down and work it out. Um, we still have huge issues on what we do with supply chain transactions. Where does Bitcoin exist when I'm dealing with, let's say, I'm doing some kind of transaction that involves multiple jurisdictions? Where is that transaction occurring? Did the sale occur in China? Did it occur in Sydney? Or did it occur in San Francisco? When
Sure.
I'm bouncing around, there's still huge issues where we need significant tax advice. But on the retail level, yeah, it's a little disconcerting, but if we understand why, we should be able to get through it, know for it, and appreciate the dilemma of the regulator because we're creating something new.
Exactly. And as we are trying to understand it, they are trying to understand it, and then put some guidance along with it while we're continuing to morph and change the way we use it and want to interact with.
So we keep our eyes on people like Libra to give us guidance on where we're headed because they're keeping their ear to the ground and listening for new things that are coming up and impacting the space. Not just with what regulators are doing, but what others are doing in the tax community. And while there's not a whole lot to hear right now, and we know why there's not a whole lot to hear right now, they're a great choice. They're a great choice to be your communicative ear, if you will, so you can focus on other things.
Do you take on personal clients? Is there a way someone that may be interested in working with you can contact you
No, I
directly?
do. I do. I'm excited to work in the Bitcoin community. And indeed, if it's something I can't do because of the tax list I've got, the BCT tax, it's not hard to find the right person for you. I'm old enough, I've been in this space long enough. I was at one time the general counsel of a public company. It's not the money for me in this space. It really is the excitement about what we're trying to achieve and do. And it's funny, uh, Patrick Merck, I just referred a guy out of Texas to Patrick for an issue that he was looking for a little help on. So I have no issue in referring at all for somebody who is good for your space. If you are in Bitcoin as a high frequency trader, you're sitting over there at Manhattan, give me a buzz. It may not be my issue, and I may not have the expertise you need, but I will know who you do.
That's awesome. I absolutely love your take on this whole space and
Oh,
your
thanks.
approach to it. What's the best way to reach you for those that are interested?
Typically, well, I am R Derber, RDERBER at gmail.com. Ping me, I'll ping you back same day. And I'm excited with novel issues. I appreciate Bitcoin as a technology and not merely as a pay medium. So that's pretty. I think that's pretty critical in how we deal with it now and how we approach the answers that we give clients and how we show them what we think is sort of a responsible way of dealing with Bitcoin in whatever regulatory environment we're in. So,
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your
Denise, you
expertise.
have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and you do the same.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.